All right. Another episode of the Lilac City Leadership Podcast. And, this is your host and co-host, James Krejci and
Doyle Wheeler.
And one of our goals with this podcast was to invite a bunch of mediocre guests onto the show. So we're actually failing miserably at that because we have yet another really exciting guest on today, Tom Simpson. So welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you. I love that entree, calling mediocre. Okay, I'll take that.
No,
delighted to be here.
We were striving to get mediocre people on, and we just can't do it.
Huh. Well, I think you succeeded today.
No,
I
we did not.
We're failing miserably.
No, Tom
that's
is
a good problem.
Fantastic guest, and I joke about the podcast guests all the time, but. We're truly grateful to have you on, Tom. And folks that don't know Tom, I think there's maybe 5 or 6 in town that don't know you yet. Tom is basically at the center of the startup ecosystem, is what I would say. And there's probably things that you're involved with that I don't even know yet. But some of the main highlights that come to mind are CEO of Ignite, leader of the Angel Alliance, involved in a lot of the startup community and cultivating and helping with capital raises and connecting folks to good resources on that front. Anything I'm missing there, Tom? That you
I think that pretty much
well?
summarizes it. The other thing I do is I have a family of angel investment funds that I manage. So that's another thing that's part of the resources that I can bring to entrepreneurs and startups and tech companies in the region.
Yeah, very awesome. And I would say, if awesome resource to have here in Spokane, and I'm sure folks would agree with me that it's unique in a community like this to have the startup platform that we have, and I'm sure there are other regions that are envious of what we have here. So, again, really excited to have you on, Tom. This is going to be an engaging episode. I can feel it. So,
well, thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
Absolutely. Before we kind of dive into the leadership-related topics, kind of give us a background of what transpired in your life that brought you to the startup scene.
None of it was really planned. I grew up in Spokane, went to Lewis and Clark High School. My dad was a relatively conservative attorney in Spokane, and so I actually kind of find it surprising. I find myself as an entrepreneur and angel investor because it certainly wasn't in my DNA. But my background is, went to Lewis and Clark, went to the University of Washington. I've always loved Spokane. Came back here in 1982. I was a CPA for about 3 years here in Spokane. Worked with Deloitte Haskins and Sells. Got a little restless doing that. Went to business school on the East Coast. Went to Wharton in Philadelphia. After that, I really wanted to go into investment banking, and I wanted to come back to Spokane. But as you can imagine, there's not a lot of investment banking activities in Spokane. I was fortunate in securing a position with a regional investment banking firm with an office in Seattle, and I joined on with them. And that's really where I kind of got the basis for my experience in capital formation and entrepreneurship and all of that. Mm-hmm. I had a wonderful mentor in Seattle, and Seattle was really up and coming at that time as an entrepreneurial hub. The markets were effervescent, and so I got some great experience, met a lot of wonderful people, got to understand the financing landscape, IPOs, venture capital, mergers and acquisitions. Did that for about 10 years, and then one day got invited to evaluate an opportunity here in Spokane to take over an angel investment fund that was created in the late 80s through the Momentum process to kind of kickstart the local economy here. Mm-hmm. Took that on, moved to Spokane, and used that platform to build a family of venture capital funds. Over the next 3 years, I raised about $175 million to invest throughout the Northwest, opened up an office in Seattle, and for a couple of years was one of the largest VC investors in the state of Washington. That was really fun for the first 5 years because that was the late 90s when basically the markets were hot and what's the expression? The rising tide lifted all boats.
Yeah.
Next 5 years wasn't so much fun. The market crashed, Sarbanes-Oxley, 9/11. The number of venture capital funds in Seattle went from like 4 to 43, way too much money in the system. And I decided that it was a fun ride, didn't really want to do it anymore. There's a lot of things about the venture capital model I didn't really like. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I quite frankly, didn't really know what I was going to do next.
Yeah.
But kind of two things serendipitously occurred. One, I was invited to kind of take over what was then the Delta Angel Group, and I rebranded that the Spokane Angel Alliance. I kind of copied it after the Seattle Alliance of Angels, which is one of the most successful angel groups in the country. So took that over and grew it to about over 100 members, and over the last 12 years or so, members have put about $60 million into 50 companies in the area. And then I was also asked to teach at Gonzaga. And
Wow.
I'd always wanted to teach, be an adjunct professor out there. And so I took that on. And in the fall of 2007, had my very first class. And in that class was a young man by the name of Josh Neblett. And one day I presented an idea for a company called Green Cupboards. And he thought it was a terrific idea and asked if he could write a business plan for it, for which I said, sure. And he did. And, one thing led to another. And about 6 or 9 months later, he and I started the company and grew that to about $120 million in revenues. Sold it about 4 years ago. In the process, did a couple name changes. Initially from Green Cupboards to E-Tails, and then E-Tails to Caspian, and now it's a publicly held company here in Spokane, and I'm delighted to still be involved as a board member.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of words really fast, but you asked the question, so
No,
be
that
careful
is a
what you ask for.
Fantastic journey. Yeah. I
no
mean,
kidding.
you just talk about a background that has led to even more excitement here in the present. So. And you use the word effervescent in that. I think that's the word of the episode. So that, I like it. How was that starting teaching? I mean, that's something that if you hear your background, it's maybe something that's a little bit different than what you had come up doing. So what was that like when you stood in front of those students in 07?
Oddly, it was kind of something that was on my bucket list. I always wanted to teach, and I was very fortunate because the students at Gonzaga are just great young men and women, and I was teaching in the entrepreneurial program, and they gave me a lot of leeway to kind of create the syllabus any way I wanted to. So I wasn't strictly prescribed to follow a set syllabus. So I got to create the class the way that I wanted to, and so I really enjoyed it. And obviously it led to it had a very positive outcome that was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And that's why I might kind of divert here for a second. All the things that I've done, none of them have been planned. None of them have been
Nice.
planned. Because people talk about career planning, and I think a lot of it has to do with just good luck. But luck isn't really luck. Luck isn't really luck. Luck, you can create luck. In my mind, luck is the intersection of hard work and opportunity. And for that, I kind of give a visual. Think of a ball machine spitting out balls. In life, you just want to put yourself in ball machines, just in front of ball machines. I mean, don't sit at home on your sofa watching Netflix. Go out and do stuff. Meet people, participate in activities, find hobbies, and just get out there. Those are all ball machines. And then when you're there, don't just stand there, start swinging. And that's the hard work. Even if you're not a good batter, if you just keep swinging and swinging and swinging, and you put yourself regularly in front of ball machines, you know what? The odds are you're going to hit a couple home runs.
Yep.
So that's kind of been my life. As you can tell, I've got a little bit of energy, a little bit of passion. I'm not a good batter, but I can swing.
But
and so all the things that I've done are really are the result of that formula.
Those Hall of Fame batters are hitting 30% of the time, so that's all it takes.
Right.
I think.
Yep.
Babe Ruth was a strikeout king.
Yeah.
But he was the home run master. But you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
It's cool.
So
and that I'll just throw this in. It's applicable to everyone.
Absolutely.
It knows no boundaries. Hard work pays off every time.
It does.
Guaranteed.
And I feel like we have, in Spokane in particular, we have kind of an honest hard work that you don't necessarily see in other regions, where people are looking out for each other.
Yep.
They're looking to do the right thing while giving that effort.
Yep.
So
that is a very special characteristic of our labor force here in this region.
Yeah.
Right.
Hardworking people and very loyal people as well.
Yeah, locals in business in Spokane, hardcore. That's why we're here. We're trying to figure out what has motivated people, because 30 years ago there was no internet.
Yeah.
And these people have stuck it out, and you still have business going in Spokane that has been around forever.
Yep.
And what makes that happen, and it's special. But leadership style applies to business that started 30 years ago. And like James and I, we only know the internet, which is great. It's a great time to be alive and taking the swinging, and you got the internet on your side. But what would you say, blended plural atmosphere of leadership styles on the internet becomes the same.
Yep.
It's the same touch points. It's almost like it's evolved to copying each other a little bit, and the message is similar. But talking to someone like you is okay. So there's more layers to leadership than just what you find on the internet.
I would agree.
So, and we love leadership. That's why leadership is in the title of this show. And so that's what we try to dissect and kind of tweak each episode to what, the guest has expertise in. So one of the things that we've been really curious about is you've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, you've seen a ton of startups. What similarities and differences are there when you look at a leader and a founder of a startup company versus, say, a leader, CEO of an established company? What are some of the differences and similarities there that you've experienced?
Leadership is one of those gray areas. I mean, one size doesn't fit all. I mean, you can't say here are the key characteristics that are required for a leader, because I can point to several people, if you made a list like that violated a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's just not a perfect formula. Frankly, I would say the leadership styles of both a leader at an early stage and at the later stage, there's a lot of overlap. I think a lot of them are similar. The only difference may be that a leader of a startup may enjoy that environment more. They might be more of a risk taker. They like chaos. They like equations that don't really have an answer, a process that is muddled. So they prefer that environment. Mm-hmm. A leader of a startup versus a leader of a company that's been around for 50 years. The leader of a business been around for a while probably prefers more stability, predictability, and those sort of things. So I think it's kind of a preference, really. I mean, because you see people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Howard Schultz, Phil Knight, Bill Gates, that were able to cross the chasm, so to speak, and be dynamic leaders at an early stage, but also carried it to the end.
Do you think that's a learned? Do they get there by learning through their experiences? Are they making an effort to train in a certain way that gets them across that chasm?
I think that doing that is not easy. It's really easy because the skill sets do change. And I think these are people that have the ability to pivot and refine, rinse, repeat, and improve.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite expressions is, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevancy even less. So they're adaptable. They can change as the company morphs from a startup to one with several hundred or $1 billion in revenues.
Gotcha.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Right.
We actually put that in our pitch decks.
I like that.
We put it in every single pitch deck, and if you go look at our employee page right now, we have a startup vibe. That's one of the biggest things we have to offer, is we can innovate. There's no wrong answer to a good problem.
It's kind of like Jeff Bezos. He begins all of his annual reports to shareholders with, it's day one. It's day one. Although now it's obviously a ginormous corporation, he still wants to maintain that startup mentality. It's day one still.
That's such a good attitude. I love that.
Yeah, same here. I think I've said this many times on the show is being at the place where your back's against the wall is when everything's shaped up. You could see the big picture. Yep. You could go forward and you had nothing to lose. You just have to get going.
Yep.
And I think where I start to really lose my footing is when I don't have my back against the wall. And starting back there, get to the wall, put your back right into it, straighten it straight, and you can see things you didn't see before.
Yep.
It's pretty exciting. It's cool. Anyway.
So thinking about investing in a startup company, there's a lot that can be kind of evaluated on paper, and does this pencil out to where it makes sense for us as investors, blah, blah, blah. How much weight, though, is placed on the leadership team when you're evaluating a startup or, maybe a second capital raise, things like that for early stage companies?
Well, the team is really most of the formula. In real estate, they say real estate is the most important thing, location. In startup investing, it's really kind of management, or founder. So it's highly important, important. You want to have a good product or service, and an attractive market and a profitable business model and all that. But I'd much rather have just an outstanding team and a mediocre product and market over a mediocre team and an outstanding product or market. So the team is everything. It's really everything.
So we're seeing some of that in the Spokane startup scene, where companies will have success, they'll sell, and then that same founder group is starting another company.
Yep.
That's exciting to see, and that just is a testament to what you just said. Those successful folks are continuing to make it happen.
And that's really important for an entrepreneurial hub, to have companies that succeed, and at some point in time they're sold, or the founders get restless and they go start new companies. That's the flywheel that is really, really important for any community or city or region to become really, truly an entrepreneurial hub.
Let me reverse that question. So now let's say you're hiring a company to help your startup. How do you look at their leadership style? Would it be the good product rather than the good team? Or would you look at both? How would you weigh that out?
So evaluating a company
to provide service to your startup or to your investment. So you've already picked the team, your company's moving forward. Now you have to get a third party involved to provide manufacturing or to do a service. How would you pick that from a leadership point of view?
I think the list I would go through is really, can this provider deliver? Number one. Number two, are the interests of the provider aligned with the interest of my company? Those are probably the two key things. Leadership is clearly something you need to evaluate, but the other two variables I highlighted would be the key ones. And presumably, if that's true, they have good leadership.
Nice. Yeah, cool.
So some founders and inventors are not leaders in the traditional sense.
Yep.
So what does a person like that do to kind of break into the scene and build partnerships with folks who may be able to help lead their company, their idea?
Yep. That's typically a technical founder, someone who's come up with a great idea, but they don't necessarily have the business judgment. Ideally, when you're starting a company, you want to have one or two co-founders. People that complement your skill set. Maybe one's technical, maybe one is sales and marketing, one is operations. So you can bring together all the components that you need to develop a successful business, and you've got someone to bring you through the highs and lows. So I would, if there's a technical, and it's also very important to know your weaknesses. So really kind of a test for a technical founder, for me, is if they have the ability to go out and identify and secure somebody to bring on as a co-founder to help them on their journey.
Yeah.
Because even though the technical founder may not be one who can go out there and evangelize the product line and identify customers, you still want them to have some sort of moxie where they can convince somebody, hey, I have this idea. I can't take it to the next level, but this is a rocket ship, and I need you as a pilot or a co-pilot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So would you sum that up as understanding it like it's part feeling, like it's part of a feeling? It's not all just about what's on paper or what the idea actually is or what it could be, but it's also the human element, the involvement of the human nature and the spark, the things that could make that business pop or go to the next level.
Yep.
Yeah.
Takes a team.
takes team. Teamwork makes the dream work. How cliche is that? Uh-huh.
Very good.
Cliche phrase of the show. Let's talk entrepreneurship and just your experience, Tom. Describe to us what's the best win that you've been a part of, whether it's something you've invested in or just even witnessed in your career.
Well, I mean, obviously I'm very biased, but building green cupboards, and that was clearly, not only financially rewarding, but just rewarding in so many other elements to partner with Josh and Sarah and build that company, put together a team, develop a culture, grow the company, provide jobs here in Spokane. I mean, that was just rewarding in so many different ways. So that's the one.
And seeing it evolve from what it was to what it was, a year ago to what it is today too is probably.
Yeah, it's great too. I mean, we initially sold the company to a company based on the East Coast, but it's just wonderful to see it now, a Spokane-based company that's publicly held. So
super cool.
And I think we're still kind of only halfway through the Caspian story too. I mean, the company's doing very well, growing rapidly, and so it'll be interesting to see what it becomes in the next 5 to 10 years.
Absolutely,
it's gonna be cool.
What are there some memorable losses that have kind of stuck with you and maybe helped evolve your approach?
Probably the most memorable loss was really a missed opportunity. Early on in my career, when I was with Dane Bosworth in Seattle, I had a wonderful mentor. And he kind of took me under his wing and introduced me to a lot of entrepreneurs in Seattle and kind of taught me the trade of investment banking. And one of the people he introduced me to early on was Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks.
Yeah.
And this was really very early on in Starbucks growth. And collectively, we had an opportunity to put a very minor amount of money, I think it was like $3,000, into one of the very first offerings for Starbucks. And I called up my dad, because that was a lot of money to me. And I called up my dad, who I previously referenced was a kind of conservative attorney here in Spokane. I said, "Hey, Dad, I have a chance to put $3,000 into this company called Starbucks." And my dad goes, "What? What's a latte anyway? And who's ever going to pay $1 for it?" And I kind of thought about that, and so I did not invest. Well, clearly that was a huge mistake, a huge missed opportunity,
Wow.
and a huge loss. But it taught me a real lesson at the time. I mean, I think I got too focused on just the business model and just and didn't really look back to leadership at the entrepreneur. I didn't really I didn't put enough weight on this individual, Howard Schultz, and his passion and his knowledge, and so that's really kind of guided me. That's one thing I evaluate frequently is look at the founder. And again, back to your question, what's more important, kind of the plan, the product, the business model, or is it the founder? And I think I put too much weight on the plan itself and not necessarily on the founder of that one.
Gotcha. That's a cool story.
I wouldn't call it a fail. We're here right now.
Yeah,
You've got some major wins because that didn't work out.
Yep.
Exactly.
It hurts though a little bit.
Yeah, it was a good learning experience.
Yeah, there you go.
So today is what, Thursday the 24th of June.
June.
And we're sitting here recording it. It's going to publish several weeks down the road. But what's the most exciting thing that you're working on today?
The most exciting thing, well, I'll probably a little bit of bias, but I'm just loving this opportunity I have here at Ignite. Mm-hmm. I'm coming up on kind of my 2-year anniversary here, and we pivoted this organization to really focused on funding, enlightening, and mentoring explosively growing companies in our region, which is Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and Sandpoint. Mm-hmm. And I think with all that the attention that this region is getting, the number, and I'm seeing it. I mean, the number of startups, the number of people that are moving here, that are considering opening up an office here, the growth. I mean, it's just super exciting. And
Yeah.
I've got a passion for this area. I love entrepreneurship. So working through with Ignite to fund, enlighten, and mentor companies here is definitely the most exciting thing I'm working on.
That's awesome. It's generating a lot of buzz around town too.
Yep.
And I've got a great team here with Cindy and Jeff White, our CFO, is now retiring, but we just brought on a new person, April Stoltz, who actually just started this week. So,
Oh, yeah.
we're a small 3-person team, but I think we're big at the net and delivering on a lot of things that are greater than just a 3-person organization. Like the loft that we're in here right now and this building, the 518 building, has kind of become the hub for
really
entrepreneurs and students and business leaders and others in the community.
There's countless business connections that happen down in Dava
Yep.
right
Oh,
below
yeah.
us, and I just love coming here. It makes me happy.
Yep.
Good vibes.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. So just for the people that are just understanding what Tom is up to and what Ignite is, take you back.
I told you there's 5 of them, so we're
Yeah.
speaking of the 5.
So you go back 7 years to the first startup weekend. I kept hearing about Tom Simpson. Well, we got to talk to Tom. I'm like, who's Tom? What is this? I can't wait to meet this guy. And then humble Tom walks in, and it's like, oh yeah, we need to think about this. We need to think about that. Startup Week can be so much more. And I think the 10 startup weekends I was fully invested in, fully involved in, and didn't compete, but just on the as a part of the team. I always heard this background terminology that this could be so much more for Spokane, and so here's Ignite, and I can't say it's a pivot from Startup Weekend, but a lot of the backbone of Startup Weekend you'll find in Ignite, not because Startup Weekend put it there, but because Tom Simpson's here. So I value your story, and I value what you bring to the table that others get help from and you don't even know it. So.
Well, you were a huge contributor. I mean, when I think of Startup Weekend, I think of you. I mean, you were involved in all of them, and you just had a positive attitude and rolled up your sleeves and really contributed to the success of it. So, it's a small town here. I'm somewhat visible, but I could make a list of 25 to 50 people that are all really involved, roll up their sleeves, and make it happen. And so it's a real team effort.
Agreed.
And as I think I alluded earlier, we're bringing back Startup Weekend this year.
Tell us more, please.
We're going to call it Sparks, and I probably shouldn't say too much about
Sounds
it now
good.
because we're going to probably do some announcements later, but we'll just leave it that we're going to bring it back.
Sparks will be flying.
Sparks will be
Yep.
flying. Yep, it's going to be cool. And so I'll leave that there, but I will say, if you're hearing this right now, don't be patient. You got to dig deep, find out what Sparks is going to be all about. Just keep grinding on that. It's going to be worth your time.
There'll be more coming out about it over the next couple of weeks. So.
And then I don't mean to keep hanging on to everything here, but you talked a little bit about finding a mentor. So can you in just a couple minutes, like, what would you encourage someone that has a good idea or even a startup and they don't really know where to go next? How would you find a mentor in Spokane?
Are you trying to tee this up for me?
Maybe
because
a little
because
bit.
I mean, I
Take
talk
the
about
swing, Tom.
well, I talk
Take
about
the swing.
ignite funds, enlightens, and mentors explosively growing companies. So one of the things that we have is we have somewhat of a proprietary group of mentors. These are people in the community that I'm familiar with that have basically agreed that if I come across an entrepreneur or a startup that is looking for a mentor, perhaps in their field, by industry or stage of growth or whatever criteria, that if I introduce them, they will agree to spend an hour or two, hear the pitch, hear the presentation, meet with the team. But from there, it's up to the mentor and the entrepreneur or the startup to determine whether or not there's a chemistry there to continue. So we're able to match those, but mentorship is a bit like friendship. I mean, you can't force it. It either kind of happens or it doesn't happen. But if someone comes to me and let's say that they're a medical device company and we're looking for a mentor, I could, for example, put them in connection with Dan Rourke, who's one of my mentors. And Dan is an individual in Spokane, went to Shadle Park. He's on his 3rd healthcare startup, First two, he grew, successfully exited, and now he's CEO of Gestalt here in Spokane, spin out from Inland Imaging, but so he's an example of how our mentorship program can work.
It's cool. Good to hear.
Yeah. Thanks for teeing that one up.
So one thing, just from the outside looking in, I hear you say rapidly growing. What about a startup that's just an idea that hasn't rapidly grown? Is there room for them to get?
Well, yeah. I mean, if entrepreneurs come in two flavors. One, and neither one is better than the other. Neither one is wrong or right. You have some entrepreneurs, like Jordan Allen here in Spokane, with his new company Rumor. He is going to conquer the world with his new company. It's not just Spokane. It's not just Washington. It's not just the region. He wants Rumor to probably be on every desktop in the world at some point in time. That's his vision. Then you have other entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to probably name any names, but someone that wants to have a corner boutique in Spokane, and they say I want to open up this store or this business, and really just kind of focus on Spokane, more of a lifestyle entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Again, neither one is wrong or right or better than the other. It's just that their growth trajectory might be different. So, I mean, if someone has a plan that, hey, I also want to conquer the world, I've got a plan that looks like it's going to be explosively growing, I'd be delighted to talk to them.
Gotcha.
And awesome. Frankly, if someone also has a lifestyle business, I'd be happy to be helpful to them too. But a lot of the resources that we have at our disposal are really more geared toward those explosively growing businesses.
Yeah. And I agree. Lifestyle is a lifestyle. Yeah. I mean, lifestyle branding is a lifestyle. It's going to take time. And I'd say brace up, go for the long haul, look at the long game.
Yeah. Yep.
That was an interesting segue into a question that's on my mind. It's basically matching up the entrepreneur with the right idea for them is kind of where I'm going with this. But a lot of us have families. We have a need to provide for our families, etc. If there's an entrepreneur that's going down the wrong path and they get backed, and that becomes a failure, and then they've got a family behind them that this impacts now. How do you go about steering people away from ideas that they seem like good ideas, but they're just not the right fit for that person?
That's a tough one. That's a tough. I don't really. I'll never tell anybody, hey, that's a bad idea. I will, because if I did that, first of all, kind of what I do in the community. I mean, sometimes you ruffle some feathers because people may not really, necessarily like your style. I can be direct sometimes. They may not like the terms of the financing you're offering. So I have to be really careful about how I interact with people, and I'm very conscientious of that. So I'm never going to say, hey, that's a bad idea. Yeah. What I will do is try to be constructively ask questions of you. Mm-hmm. Who are your competitors? How are you going to make money? Do you really think you can sell it through the internet or Facebook ads? Yeah. Ask those sort of questions, and it's typical, and it's questions that kind of come from my experience and my years of experience. And hey, I've got a lot of scars on my back. I mean, I've done a lot of things that haven't worked out well. My uncle, who was once a very successful entrepreneur, once said, "You only need to be right 60% of the time, but that 40% hurts, and you learn from it, and you stub your toes and all those sort of things." But I try to ask constructive questions to get people to think critically about what they're doing, and typically questions that their friends and family are not going to ask of them, because oftentimes I have people come to me and say, "God, my friends and family love this idea." Well, I go, "Duh, of course they're going to like it." And so the real role I play is to try to get them to think critically. Yeah. And particularly with new ideas. I mean, I'm the one who didn't invest in Starbucks. I mean, I certainly don't have a crystal ball to tell you which new idea is going to win or lose, but I can help you think through your plan and your team and how much capital you need and business models and markets and competition and marketing and sales strategy. But I'm not here to say that's a bad idea or a good idea.
Yeah. Just kind of direct people, and a lot of times they'll self-select. I imagine they'll start thinking, I really don't have an answer for that. Maybe my idea is not not the right one.
But
So,
I am cautious in
Yeah.
telling people, hey, don't quit your day job until this thing is looking to look more real. Because I'm very sympathetic, and I'm not going to name names, but I know a couple of people here in town that are trying to start new businesses while they're still the main breadwinner for a family, and they're working nights and weekends and all that. But and I love the fact that they're doing it, but they're not going to cut the cord until they have a certain level of confidence knowing that this thing's going to take off.
Yeah.
But boy, I admire those people. I mean, they're
Oh, yeah.
following their passion and spending nights and weekends trying to build a business while during the day they're providing for their families and taking care of their families. Not easy.
They're in front of the ball machine.
Yep.
That's right. Swinging hard.
What in the world is it about Spokane that this place is just, I mean, you're a lot of it.
Yeah.
The community that you're involved in is a lot of it. What else, though? There just seems to be a lot that's special about Spokane.
It's the people. And I think there's somewhat of a similar mindset here about the people that live in Spokane. They're good people. They're loyal. They like the outdoors. Through Ignite, we publish a series of things called The Other East Side. And people kind of ask me, hey, where did the Other East Side come from? And when I was very actively working in Seattle, and I used to almost commute there on a daily basis, people would say, "Hey, Tom, let's meet. Let's meet on the East Side." And when they say that, they kind of meant Bellevue or Issaquah or Renton or Redmond or something like that. And I'd go, "No. The East Side's really Spokane." So I am going to answer your question here. There are just so many attributes to Spokane, whether it's the recreation, the outdoors, the universities, the arts district. I mean, there's so many
Cost of living.
amazing cost of living, so many amazing elements of this region that we've distilled them down into this kind of series called The Other East Side, where we highlight all of these many things about Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and Sandpoint about our region. So rather than list like all 45 of them or whatever they are so far, I direct people to look at kind of our news feed on Ignite Northwest and look at the Other East Side. But
I
so
think
many of them.
People both in the region and outside probably will look at a few of those and go like, "Really?
Yeah.
That's true about Spokane." I mean, I know I do it. I look at those.
Like
and some of these,
the second or the first largest urban waterfall in the country is Spokane.
yeah.
Not Niagara Falls. Now, I might have that. We're either first or second, but we're one of the largest.
We'll just for this show, we'll just say first. I like
Sure,
that.
why
like
not? It's all marketing.
Be the leader, Tom.
Yeah.
Just own it.
Yep.
Well, I think there's some of the things that really pop out when I think of the Other East Side is if you were going to start a manufacturing startup, we've got good power. We're not going to run out of power. We're really close to water. We got wind energy up the hill. If you need space, unlimited. You can go to Deer Park and you can set up shop and you have plenty of power. The list goes on. Cost of living, 4 seasons for any of your Silicon Valley friends that want to move to an environment where it's vibrant.
I do want to make one distinction here. For a number of years, when Spokane would market itself, they would lead with, "Hey, move to Spokane, start your business here because it's cheap." It's cheap. It's really inexpensive. Well, the types of companies that they would recruit then are those that are counting pencils at night and really are not making a high profit margin. So what I like to do now is talk about the quality of life and all the other benefits of this region. You talk about the workforce, how hard, the strong work ethic of the workforce, the loyalty, the students, the recreation, all of those sort of things. Because then you will attract companies that, frankly, can relocate anywhere. They're competing for employees, and so their basis of competition is not really compensation or cost. It's, hey, you know what? We have an office in Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, or Sandpoint. We can now offer you a quality of life that someone else can't do. So highlight that, and then say, by the way, it's affordable. The hook is the quality of life, and then the closing is, okay, you know what? It's also affordable. You can get a very nice home on a tree-lined street in Spokane for something that is affordable.
We were helping out with sorry, I
No,
just jumped
go
in. I'm
for it.
getting all excited. I love Spokane and all it has
We're all
to
kind of
offer.
feeding on each other.
Yeah. So I built a website for a piece of property that is able to pull in electrical and also have retail space and have a place for offices. So it's really cool. And one of the things that we've discovered in research is that with the amount of schools that we have here, we've got people nationally coming to Gonzaga, Whitworth.
Yep.
You've got locals hitting Eastern. Then we have community college. Now we have Washington State University pulling in here.
Yep.
WSU School of Nursing, and then WSU is only a few miles away.
Right.
All of that accumulates to a huge choosing ground.
Absolutely.
Absolutely huge.
Yep.
And we put out job application. We get 30 or job requests just on LinkedIn. We'll get 30 or 40 overnight, and they're all college educated right from around here.
Yep.
No kidding.
Great to hear.
It's good stuff.
That was teeing up Tom for another one of his ventures with job postings around here. I think Ignite.
IgniteMatch.works.
That's right.
And it's really meant to be kind of a central location that anybody looking for a new opportunity in Spokane, either someone that lives here already or is looking to move here, one central place that they can go to see most, not all, but most of the technical and senior level positions with companies in the area. And a central location where companies in the area can put those job postings.
Mm-hmm. And it just, in my mind, it kind of trims the fat. Like if you're going on a normal recruiting job board or something like that, you got to filter through all these things, and there's a bunch of stuff that you don't want. Here, it's like we have an employer in Spokane, we have a potential employee. Let's get those guys together.
Yep.
So really cool.
Yeah.
I actually put a couple job posts out on that. I liked it. My only encouragement to anyone that would actually put a post on there for a job is highlight your culture. Make sure people know exactly what's on there. Don't bake your Indeed post right into Ignite. Like there's a vibrancy that needs to come into Ignite.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying it to anyone that could potentially put a job post up on the Ignite network. It's good.
Good observation.
Are there limitations in Spokane where, and I'm kind of an optimist, so I'm going to put a positive spin on this, but are there limitations that could be opportunities for people in terms of leadership?
In terms of leadership, I don't know if leadership really is geographically muted or constrained.
Okay.
If I could wave a magic wand over this region, I would love to see the local universities and colleges mint more computer science degrees. Because that's where we have a shortage.
Yeah.
We have a shortage there.
100% agree.
Interestingly enough, there's a lot of just tremendous talent and leaders in Spokane. There's a lot of people I've met who are somewhat quiet in the community, and they live here or moved here because they chose to do so. In many cases, they had success elsewhere, and somehow in their background traveled through Spokane or whatever reason, but they planted themselves here. So there's a lot of incredibly quiet leaders here in town. So I don't think we have a shortage or constraint there, but more computer science degrees, shortage of that.
Awesome. Well, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, I'm going to college tomorrow. I'm gonna be a computer science. No, I'm not. I can't do it. It's not my.
You're going to pivot again?
No, not pivoting. Not pivoting in computer science. I can hire people for that.
Yep, there you
I just
go.
need more of them. Yeah.
Well, Doyle, I think it's time for our seventh inning stretch.
Can't wait.
Take it
Can't
away.
wait to hear what Tom has to
Uh-oh.
bring to the table on this one. So seventh inning stretch is we asked our guests some of your personal favorites in Spokane.
Okay.
And so we'll just take it from the top. What's your favorite Spokane entertainment?
Spokane entertainment. Well, probably the one of the things I enjoy the most. I mean, it's hate to disqualify anybody else, but Bloomsday. I like to run. I like athletic events. I like to be outside, and that's probably one thing I try not to miss every year. So
Nice. Side note: I saw your office at McKinstry Building once. It is loaded with tags from running. I couldn't even count them all in 5 minutes. It's pretty impressive. That's cool.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I've done a number of athletic events.
love it. Yeah, it's cool. Favorite Spokane neighborhood?
South Perry District, love it down
Ooh,
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has a good vibe going.
Blockhouse just went up.
Yeah, you got Blockhouse, you got Perry Street Brewing, the pizza, all sorts of great places down
Super
there.
cool.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
southern style. What's that one called?
Casper Fry?
Yeah, Casper
Casper Fry.
Good
Yeah.
one there.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
pork belly right there. Yeah, you want a good chunk of bacon, get the pork belly. Favorite Spokane coffee shop?
Well, that's an easy one.
I think it
in
might be.
Daba. Come on now.
Right
right here
here.
in the 518 building.
I love it. Favorite Spokane restaurant?
Favorite Spokane restaurant? I have to say the Elk.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a mainstay here in Spokane. Also in a fun neighborhood. Sit outside in the spring and summer and fall, and get always fun people down there, and a cross section of things on the menu, and good beer, and yeah.
And if you want Mexican, they've got the little
Right next
LK,
door,
right
LK.
next door, same owners.
Don't
I
you
think,
love
and
that?
That's awesome.
It's cool. And so, what do you most enjoy about Spokane as a whole?
Well, haven't I already kind of highlighted enough? You're
Hey.
going to exhaust me. I can't.
Hey.
I can't.
That,
I
It's
love
people like you. It's again, there's just so many interesting, passionate people here in Spokane, and you guys reflect that. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's all about the people. And it's so much fun now that we're kind of post-COVID. You can be back out, walking downtown, on the street, saying hi to people, and that's what it's all about. There's something in the water here about the people. And,
100% agree.
And I really see it. I saw it a lot when I taught at Gonzaga, but also all the students here in Spokane, the Whitworth. I mean, there's a common DNA thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's something in the river.
Yeah, it could be.
oh, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Something in the water.
Just don't eat
Yeah.
the fish out of the
Yeah,
river.
don't eat the
You're not
fish.
supposed to. Well, maybe one a year. To kind of bring things to close here, I guess, in terms of your own leadership inspiration, who's kind of the most interesting person that you've met along your journey?
Well, I've had a chance to meet a lot of very interesting people, but one that really, and some people I spent a lot of time with, and some I just had a brief crossing, but I had the opportunity once to meet with Doug McMillan, and Doug is CEO of Walmart, and in the peak of growing e-tails, I had a chance to meet with him, and I got invited to actually go to his office in Bentonville, Arkansas. And here he is, CEO of the largest Fortune 500 company. And I had a chance to spend 45 minutes or so with him in his office, and I was just struck by his humility and his grace and his leadership. I'm Tom Simpson from Spokane, running a small e-commerce company. And he was, again, gracious, very soft-spoken, and I was just really inspired by his leadership style, the fact that he took some time to meet with me, and he was just very, his time, his comments, his input was just fantastic. So.
That's
But
really
I only
cool.
spent 45 minutes with him, but
He
so
made
that
an
just
impact.
Kind of
Yeah.
in that brief time frame, it was a real learning experience.
So when you need inspiration today, what do you typically turn to? Do you read books, or what's the kind of the
Yeah,
main
I
thing?
love reading books about successful entrepreneurs and hearing their stories. And every year at Christmas time, I pick out a new book. And I buy 25 or 30, the number grows every year, copies, and kind of hand it out to people that are my close friends and business associates.
Yeah.
This year, the book I handed out was the book by Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, called No Rules, Rules, which I love because as an entrepreneur, I'm not necessarily dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, and always kind of rearranging the furniture on how things ought to be done. And his book was all about that. No rules, rules. So
That sounds like a fun book to read.
Yeah.
Also known as Shut Down Blockbuster without trying.
yeah, that's another one of my.
man.
That's another one of my favorite expressions. Don't be Netflix.
Yeah.
Blockbuster should have been Netflix, but
Should have been.
they got Netflixed.
They
Yeah.
did. They got Netflix hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Hey, can I ask one question before we close?
Yeah.
I want to hear Tom Simpson's exact definition of an entrepreneur.
Exact definition of an entrepreneur.
Two sentences or less.
2 sentences. You know what? Just, throwing all your passion and tenacity at some big, hairy, audacious goal, a BHAG.
Boom.
That's awesome.
Love it. Quote of the day.
That quote is going to be framed in social media land. I can sense Doyle's already working
Yeah,
on that.
right.
I
So,
think Savannah's going to have it popping up in the feed here.
well, Tom, this has been an amazing episode of the Lilac City Leadership Podcast, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and hear part of your story and the why behind what you do. So, thank
you very much. I'm honored that you brought on a mediocre presenter, and hopefully I didn't disappoint.
Oh, the energy in the room here is crazy. This is so good. But anyway, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Doyle, and
Appreciate it.
be sure to be involved in Sparks again this year.
Been talking to
we
Connor.
want it.
I appreciate it.